It was February 2004, the heart of a New Hampshire winter. A black Saturn came to rest on a snow-drifted road. The engine was still warm. The driver was nowhere to be found. Maura Murray was an accomplished West Point cadet who had gone on to study nursing. She left behind a trail of academic ambition and mounting pressure. In the months before her disappearance, those closest to her spoke of success mixed with strain. According to investigators, an accident on Route 112 set in motion one of the most baffling missing person cases in modern American history. There were no confirmed sightings, no verifiable digital footprints, and a timeline that experts continue to debate, even decades later. Despite exhaustive searches, forensic reviews, and evolving theories, Maura Murray's fate remains an unfinished question. The case continues to draw attention from family members, law enforcement, and communities that follow unresolved mysteries. What really happened in those critical minutes after the crash? And why does this case continue to resist answers? Maura Murray arrived at the United States Military Academy at West Point in the summer of 2000. She was 18, coming off a strong academic and athletic record in her Massachusetts hometown. West Point demanded discipline and adherence to a strict honor code. The academy shaped cadets with early morning drills, rigorous coursework, and a culture where even minor infractions could bring serious consequences. For Maura, the environment was both challenging and rewarding. She excelled in physical training, ran on the cross-country team, and formed close bonds with other cadets. But the pressure was constant. The honor code, which required cadets to report any observed violations, weighed heavily on many students, including Maura. By her second year, the strain began to show. According to academy records and peer accounts, Maura was disciplined for a minor infraction involving unauthorized use of a credit card number to order food. That violation, while not uncommon among stressed cadets, carried official consequences. The academy response was formal, but not so severe that it ended her academic path. Instead, it became a turning point. Facing mounting stress, and after suffering a minor injury, Maura made the decision in 2001 to leave West Point voluntarily. She received an honorable discharge, which allowed her to transfer credits and continue her education elsewhere. The experience left a mark, instilling habits of order, but also exposing her to the weight of high expectations and the reality of personal setbacks. By the fall of 2001, Maura was enrolled at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, ready to begin a new chapter, but carrying the lessons and pressures from her time at West Point into her next steps. By the fall of 2001, Maura Murray was settling into life at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, majoring in nursing. The program was demanding, known for heavy clinical rotations, long hours in local hospitals, and a relentless pace of assignments and exams. Maura's academic record remained strong, with transcripts showing a high grade point average even as the workload increased. She balanced her studies with part-time jobs on and off campus, including shifts at a local art gallery and work as a security monitor, using the income to help cover expenses and to maintain some independence from home. Her schedule left little room for rest. Early mornings often began with hospital rounds, followed by lectures and lab work, and then late-night study sessions in the dorms. Nursing students at the University of Massachusetts faced competitive grading and strict attendance policies. Missing a single clinical could mean repeating an entire semester. Classmates described Maura as diligent and focused, but the pressure was constant. Friends recall her as quiet but friendly, someone who kept her struggles mostly private. By late 2003, the stress was mounting. The combination of academic expectations, job responsibilities, and the lingering effects of her West Point experience weighed on her. Some peers noticed she seemed more withdrawn and occasionally overwhelmed by the pace of her obligations. Still, Maura continued to meet deadlines and maintain her grades, determined to finish the program. The demands of nursing school, together with her own personal standards, set the emotional baseline for the months leading up to February 2004. On the afternoon of February 5, 2004, a disturbance unfolded inside Maura Murray's dorm at UMass Amherst. According to a campus police log, a resident assistant named Karen M. found Maura in a visibly distressed state. The report described her as crying, inconsolable, and allegedly intoxicated. Witnesses said she was knocking on doors and asking for wine. The incident did not lead to any charges, but the resident assistant noted Maura's emotional turmoil and reported it to campus authorities. This episode, logged by police around 2 in the afternoon, stood out as a rare public display of vulnerability for someone who usually kept her struggles private. 2 days later, on February 7, 2004, the first signs of financial trouble appeared. Bank records show unauthorized charges totaling $1,200 on a credit card belonging to her father. The purchases spanned several days and included online orders and deliveries to her dorm. When the charges surfaced, Maura's family grew concerned. Her father, Fred Murray, later confirmed he had not given permission for the card's use. The university began looking into the transactions as a possible case of credit card misuse, and Maura faced the risk of disciplinary action. According to police notes, this was not her first brush with financial stress, but the amount and the timing, so close to the dorm incident, alarmed those close to her. The pattern suggested a mounting financial strain that could not be ignored. Taken together, these back-to-back events painted a picture of mounting pressure. The dormitory altercation exposed cracks in Maura's ability to manage her emotions, while the credit card discovery brought material consequences that threatened her academic standing and her relationship with family. Friends and campus staff would later recall these days as a turning point, a moment when Maura's carefully maintained composure began to slip. The details preserved in police reports and bank statements offer a documented glimpse into a brief period of escalating stress. They do not explain what followed, and they do not resolve the unanswered questions that would come in the days after. They do, however, mark a compressed string of incidents that investigators and family members would look back on as significant in the timeline leading up to her disappearance. February 9, 2004, began with classes cancelled at the University of Massachusetts Amherst because of a heavy snowstorm. The cold and the silence outside set a winter scene. By early afternoon, Maura Murray was in her dorm room packing her belongings. Boxes lined the floor, filled with clothing, textbooks, and toiletries. On top of one box, she placed a printed email exchange with her boyfriend, hinting at relationship struggles. Friends and staff later confirmed that her room appeared organized, as if prepared for an extended absence. At 3 p.m., Maura sent an email to her professors and to her work supervisor. She stated there had been a death in her family and requested a week off to attend to the emergency. Family members later clarified that no such event had occurred. According to a forensic accountant familiar with the case, the timestamp on the email aligns with university server logs, confirming it was sent from her dorm room. Roughly 40 minutes later, at 3:40 p.m., Maura withdrew $280 from an ATM in Amherst. Surveillance footage from the bank shows her alone, dressed in dark clothing, conducting the transaction without visible signs of distress. The withdrawal nearly emptied her account, leaving only a small balance behind. Bank records and ATM logs confirm the withdrawal and the exact time. No other person appeared with her in the footage, and no unusual activity was detected on her account after that date. The footage establishes her being alone for that transaction. Soon after, Maura visited a nearby liquor store. Purchase records and a time-stamped receipt show she bought Bailey's, Kahlua, vodka, and a box of Francia wine for just under $40. Store security cameras captured her entering and exiting alone, carrying 2 bags. She also stopped at the Registry of Motor Vehicles to pick up accident report forms, a detail confirmed by time-stamped forms later found in her car. The receipt and the forms form part of the documented chain of events. By 4:30 p.m., Maura had packed her car, a black 1996 Saturn, with her belongings and set out from Amherst. The sequence of events verified through receipts, emails, and surveillance stills provides a clear minute-by-minute account of her actions that afternoon. Each step suggests planning and deliberate movement, but her intended destination remained unknown as she began the drive north. The choices that afternoon point to planning, and yet the outcome remained unanswered. By late afternoon, on February 9, 2004, Maura Murray's black Saturn was headed north, leaving behind the campus of the University of Massachusetts, Amherst. The roads that day were slick from a recent snowstorm, with temperatures hovering near freezing. The winter light was already fading, and long shadows stretched across the open stretches of Route 91, the main highway leading out of Massachusetts. Traffic was sparse. Most travelers had already retreated indoors, wary of the icy conditions and the deepening cold. The highway felt quiet, the kind of quiet that makes small sounds seem larger and simple choices feel heavier. Maura's route traced a familiar corridor for anyone leaving western Massachusetts for the northern reaches of New England. She passed through small towns and wooded valleys, her car loaded with clothes, textbooks, and a few personal effects. According to weather reports, the sky remained overcast, with scattered snow flurries drifting across the windshield. Cell service grew patchier as she approached the Vermont border, and by 2004, rural coverage was limited, especially in the mountain foothills. After crossing into New Hampshire, Maura would have exited the interstate and turned onto a series of narrower, winding roads. Route 112, also known as Wild Ammonoosuc Road, cut through dense forest with few houses and no streetlights. Snowbanks along the shoulder had built up over several storms, narrowing the lanes and hiding icy patches beneath fresh powder. As dusk settled, the landscape grew more isolated. The last leg of her drive took her deeper into the White Mountains, where the distance between homes could stretch for half a mile or more. The journey from Amherst to Haverhill, New Hampshire, spanned nearly 3 hours. By the time Maura reached the outskirts of Woodsville, night had fallen. The only illumination came from headlights and the occasional porch light in the distance. Her car pressed on through the darkness, following a route that would soon become the center of a mystery that remains unresolved. At 7:27 p.m. on February 9, 2004, a resident named Faith Westman placed a call to 911 from her home along Route 112. According to her statement, she reported hearing a loud thump outside, and then she saw a black Saturn lodged against a snowbank near her driveway. Through a window, she noticed movement around the vehicle. She described seeing a figure standing beside the car, possibly holding a phone or a cigarette, though her account shifted in later statements. The night was cold and quiet, with only the sound of wind and distant traffic. Within minutes, Butch Atwood, a local school bus driver, approached the scene while returning from his route. His yellow bus pulled up near the Saturn between 7:35 p.m. and 7:40 p.m. According to his statement, he saw a young woman standing outside the car. She appeared shaken, but he did not observe obvious injuries. He offered to call for help, and he reported that she declined, saying she had already contacted roadside assistance. Atwood noted that her speech was coherent, and while he later said she seemed upset, he did not report clear signs of intoxication. The exchange was brief, happening in the dim light of the bus headlights and snow reflecting off the road. After returning home, Atwood called 911 to report the crash, providing his account and confirming that the woman was alone at the scene. His call came shortly after 7:40 p.m. By this point, at least 2 civilians had reported seeing Maura Murray at the crash site, according to dispatch logs and later interviews. Those statements remain some of the last confirmed sightings before police arrival. The interval between the crash and law enforcement response became a central focus of the investigation, raising questions that persist decades later. Officer Cecil Smith arrived at the scene on Route 112 at 7:46 in the evening. Arrived that night, he found a quiet winter road. The black Saturn sat with its front end pressed into a snowbank, headlights still on, but the driver was nowhere in sight. Nowhere could anyone be seen as snow gathered around the vehicle. Snow continued to fall lightly, covering any footprints that might have led away from the car. The soft fall erased a potential trail within minutes. The interior showed signs of recent use. Textbooks and clothing were scattered on the seats. A box of Franzia wine lay damaged on the back floor, and a red stain, likely wine, marked the upholstery. The airbags had deployed. Stain and scattered items suggested someone had been in a hurry. On the passenger seat, Smith noted an AAA card, accident report forms, gloves, and a few personal effects. A rag later traced to the car's roadside emergency kit was found stuffed into the muffler pipe. The keys were missing, as were Maura's cell phone, wallet, and black backpack. According to the officer's report, there was no sign of forced entry or struggle inside or around the vehicle. No sign of a confrontation was recorded at the scene. The car was locked and the driver's seat was empty. Smith and the bus driver, Butch Atwood, searched the immediate area by flashlight, calling out into the darkness, but received no response. They searched the near roadway and woods and found no answer. In the 19 minutes between the last confirmed sighting and police arrival, Maura Murray had vanished, leaving behind a vehicle that offered more questions than answers. The absence of her belongings raised immediate concerns about where she might have gone and how she had left the scene so quickly in the cold and dark. Concerns centered on the speed and the uncertainty of her departure. With no clear trail to follow, the investigation would soon shift from a routine accident response to a search for a missing person. The scene on Route 112 became the starting point of a case that remains unresolved. Officer Cecil Smith remained at the crash site on Route 112 as the evening pressed on, working alongside local first responders to secure the scene. The black Saturn, its front end pressed into the snowbank, was the focus of careful attention. By this point, emergency medical services and fire personnel had already cleared the scene, confirming there were no injured parties present. The vehicle sat locked and empty, headlights casting long beams into the cold dark. Smith documented his observations, noting the scattered belongings inside, including textbooks, a damaged box of Francia wine, gloves, and printed directions. The rag stuffed into the muffler, later traced to a roadside emergency kit, was logged among the scene's anomalies. Throughout the next hour, the perimeter remained loosely defined. The immediate area around the car was checked on foot, but the search did not extend far beyond the road's edge. Snow continued to fall lightly, erasing any footprints that might have been left in the moments after the crash. According to dispatch records, several vehicles passed along Route 112 during this window, but none reported seeing anyone matching Maura Murray's description. The absence of clear tracks or dropped items complicated efforts to determine which direction she might have gone. At 8:49 p.m., the Saturn was loaded onto a tow truck and transported to a local garage in Haverhill. The tow log confirms the removal time, marking the end of the vehicle's presence at the scene. Officer Smith remained until roughly 9:30 p.m., overseeing the process and ensuring that the car and its contents were handled according to department procedure. No comprehensive inventory was completed at the roadside, and no chain of custody forms or evidence seals are referenced in public records from that night. The vehicle's keys, wallet, and cell phone were not recovered at the scene, and no one witnessed Maura leaving the area. On February 10, 2004, a bulletin was issued describing her as missing, with details about her clothing and the black backpack that was believed to be with her. The initial law enforcement response relied on available resources, a small-town police force limited by winter conditions and the rural landscape. The search perimeter remained close to the site until daylight, when a wider effort, including K9 teams, could be organized. The early hours of the investigation set the stage for the days that followed, with questions about evidence handling and scene security lingering as the case moved forward. K9 teams arrived on Route 112 the morning after Maura Murray vanished. The first bloodhounds, flown in from Oklahoma by New Hampshire Fish and Game, were given a pair of red boxing gloves from her Saturn's trunk as the scent article. Recently handled and sealed in the car, the gloves provided a strong, uncontaminated scent. Both bloodhounds started at the driver's side door, picking up a trail that led east along the shoulder of Route 112. They moved together, noses low, straining against their leads as they traced the snowy roadside. Handler notes show the scent held steady for about 100 yards before fading abruptly near a driveway. At that spot, both dogs circled, searching for a continuation, but neither could re-establish the trail. There was no indication the scent crossed the road or entered the woods. The dogs simply stopped, signaling an endpoint that left investigators with more questions than answers. Over the next 2 days, at least 4 more dogs joined the search, some from local agencies and others from state police. Their results were inconsistent. One German Shepherd, handled by a New Hampshire search and rescue specialist, picked up a faint trail in the opposite direction, heading west for about 100 yards before losing the scent. Other dogs showed no clear response at all. Handlers documented these differences, noting that each animal reacted differently to the same environment. These notes highlight the variable nature of scent work in real conditions. Winter weather complicated every step. Temperatures stayed below freezing, with fresh snow covering the ground and new flakes drifting in the wind. For scent-tracking dogs, cold air can preserve molecules, but it also slows their movement, while snow absorbs and scatters odors. The road had seen foot traffic from first responders, the bus driver, and local residents. Passing vehicles stirred up exhaust and salt, adding layers of contamination that can confuse even the most experienced bloodhounds. Handler logs mention multiple overlapping scents, making it difficult to determine if the dogs were following Maura, a searcher, or simply the strongest recent trace. Weather and activity created a contest between original scent and later contamination. Experts in scent trailing stress the limits of canine evidence in these conditions. In controlled settings, bloodhounds perform well, but real-world searches, especially those delayed by hours and hampered by winter weather, see reliability drop sharply. Studies show that after 12 hours, the odds of a clean trail fall by more than half, and every new footprint or tire track further degrades the evidence. In Maura's case, the earliest search began more than 12 hours after she disappeared, with significant time for scent to dissipate or be overwritten. Timing, therefore, became a critical factor in evaluating the dog's findings. The eastbound trail, ending near a driveway, remains the only consistent lead from the canine teams. Some consider this an indication that Maura left the scene on foot and may have been picked up by a passing vehicle. Others caution that the trail could have been interrupted by environmental factors or contaminated by search activity. No physical evidence was found at the end of the trail. The dog's work provided direction, but not certainty. Handlers and investigators treated the scent results as one piece of a larger puzzle. Logs and reports were cross-referenced with witness statements and scene photos in an effort to separate signal from noise. The differences between dogs, the impact of weather, and the delay in starting the search all reduced the ability to draw firm conclusions from scent work alone. Still, the trail offered a tangible place to focus additional inquiry, and it remains part of the record as investigators continue to weigh what it might mean. In the end, the K9 effort on Route 112 demonstrates both the value and the limitations of scent evidence. The dogs pointed to an eastbound path, then stopped. That stop, and the absence of corroborating physical evidence, leaves the question open. The scent work guided investigators, but it did not provide a definitive answer, and the result remains uncertain. In 2004, Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire, was a communications dead zone. Cell phone coverage maps from that era show large gaps across the White Mountains, with only a handful of towers serving the region. According to telecom analysts, the stretch where Maura Murray's car was found sat squarely in one of the most pronounced coverage voids in the state. Even major carriers like Verizon and AT&T offered little more than sporadic signal, and those signals faded to nothing as night fell and temperatures dropped. A technical analyst familiar with the case compared archival tower density to modern overlays. Today, digital signals blanket much of Grafton County, and a lost traveler's phone would ping off multiple towers within minutes. In 2004, a handset in Maura's position would have failed to connect at all. Carrier retention policies from that period also limited what could be reconstructed. Most companies purged tower connection logs after a matter of days or weeks, and rural sites often lacked the real-time tracking capabilities now considered routine. Investigators looking for a digital footprint ran into a wall of missing data. There were no outgoing calls, no incoming pings, and no way to triangulate her last known position beyond the crash site itself. Without tower logs or persistent records, the digital trail simply ended at the vehicle. This technological gap shaped every aspect of the early investigation. When witnesses described Maura possibly holding a cell phone outside her Saturn, there was no way to confirm if she had tried to call for help or if the device had displayed an error message. The 911 system relied on landlines for accurate location. Cellular calls, when they connected at all, could not be traced to a specific spot along the road. Emergency dispatchers received no global positioning coordinates, no automated alerts, and no follow-up data from Maura's carrier. Archived coverage maps from 2004, compared to present-day overlays, highlight just how isolated the crash site was from digital communication. In the years since, families and investigators have revisited the case using modern tools. But the original data simply does not exist. No cell tower logs, no text records, and no geolocation pings survived from that night. The absence of these records left a critical blind spot, forcing the search for Maura Murray to rely almost entirely on physical evidence, witness statements, and the limits of what could be seen or heard in the dark. The technology of the time, or the lack of it, became its own silent barrier, leaving investigators with more questions than answers as they tried to trace her final movements along a road where signals faded into the winter air. According to official records from the crash site on Route 112, investigators catalogued a collection of personal items found inside Maura Murray's black Saturn. Items included clothing, textbooks, toiletries, and a box of Francia wine damaged on the floor. There were gloves, an AAA card, accident report forms, printed driving directions, and a book titled Not Without Peril. A rag from the car's emergency kit was discovered stuffed into the muffler, an odd detail logged during the initial inspection. The airbags had deployed, and red stains, likely wine, marked the upholstery. Despite the inventory, several essential belongings were missing from the scene. Maura's cell phone, wallet, and black backpack were not recovered. No winter coat, hat, or gloves were found, even though temperatures hovered below freezing that night. The car keys were also absent. Bank records, phone statements, and university logs confirm that after February 9, 2004, there was no further activity on Maura Murray's accounts. Her cell phone remained silent, with no outgoing or incoming calls. Credit and debit cards showed no transactions. Investigators found no evidence of her accessing email, withdrawing cash, or making purchases after the crash. The absence of these digital traces left a void in the timeline, offering no clues about her movements or intentions once she left the vehicle. These gaps in the physical and digital record have complicated every effort to reconstruct what happened in the hours and days that followed. 5 theories have dominated discussions about Maura Murray's disappearance, and each theory rests on a different reading of the same, often incomplete evidence. These competing explanations help to map the questions and the gaps that remain, but they do not deliver answers. One theory suggests that Maura left voluntarily. Supporters of this idea point to a packed car, an email she sent to her professors about a family emergency, and the absence of obvious signs of a struggle at the scene. According to investigators, however, there have been no confirmed sightings, and no financial activity has been detected since February 9, 2004. Her family maintains she had no plans to disappear. These facts leave the voluntary theory plausible to some and unconvincing to others. Another possibility is that she succumbed to the elements. It was a cold winter night, and she may have been without adequate clothing. Search teams, including K9 units and helicopters, scoured the woods and roadsides for days but found no trace. According to investigators, the negative search results raise real doubts about this scenario, because exposure in that terrain and weather is often evident in search patterns and recoveries, yet none were found. A third theory proposes that Maura was picked up by a passerby. There is a 19-minute gap between the last known witness interaction and the time police arrived on scene. That window could have allowed her to accept a ride. However, no drivers have come forward and no vehicles were reported as suspicious in the area. The lack of corroborating testimony or physical leads weakens the passenger theory. Some believe, allegedly, that foul play was involved. Observers point to the remote location, the rag found in the muffler, and the abrupt end of the K9 scent trail as elements that raise questions. According to investigators, though, no physical evidence or credible suspects have emerged to support a definitive finding of criminal involvement. The absence of clear evidence means that this theory remains possible and unproven. Finally, there is the idea of an accident followed by concealment. In this scenario, Maura may have been disoriented or injured, left the scene, and met with misfortune nearby. Extensive searches turned up nothing definitive, and according to investigators, there is no direct evidence to confirm that such a sequence occurred. The possibility remains, but it is not supported by conclusive proof. Across these 5 lines of thought, certain patterns repeat. There are timeline gaps, unanswered questions about the scent trail, and a lack of post-disappearance activity on financial accounts and communications. Conflicting witness accounts and the limits of early search efforts add to the uncertainty. Some details point toward one explanation, while other details point away from it. Each theory reflects a different interpretation of the same unresolved facts. None can be stated as certain. The case remains open because the evidence can support multiple conclusions, and because critical questions remain unanswered. Which of these theories, if any, most closely matches what actually happened is a question that still stands unanswered. Maura Murray's family has never stopped searching. Each year, her father, Fred Murray, returns to the White Mountains, walking the back roads and wooded trails near Route 112. He organizes volunteer searches, presses for new leads, and files legal requests to access police records that remain sealed. Their persistence is quiet and relentless. Her siblings continue the effort, speaking with reporters, consulting private investigators, and maintaining an active presence on websites and social media. The case remains open with the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit, which periodically reviews evidence and follows up on new information. The fact that the case is open keeps the possibility of new leads alive. In recent years, law enforcement has acknowledged the potential role of new technology, including advances in DNA analysis and digital mapping, as possible tools for future breakthroughs. These developments offer new ways to re-examine old evidence, while at the same time they do not promise immediate answers. Investigators and the family alike hold to a cautious hope. Despite more than 2 decades without answers, the search for Maura has not faded from public view. Annual vigils and community gatherings keep her memory alive. Each review by investigators renews the possibility that even a small piece of evidence might someday bring clarity. The persistence of Maura's family and the continued attention from both authorities and the public underscores a determination that the case, though unfinished, is not forgotten. Today, Maura Murray's case remains unsolved, her file open and her questions unanswered. Over 20,000 missing person cases in the United States remain unresolved, each one reminding us how quickly certainty collapses into silence. With every year, evidence grows colder and memories fade. The search for truth continues, shaped by the limits of technology and time. Some mysteries endure not from lack of effort, but from the quiet persistence of the unknown.